Phillip Dukes joins us to take a look at Auburn's 2025 class.
You are now listening to the War Report Podcast Network.
Let's go, Auburn family. Up-tempo game. Welcome back to the latest episode of the Up-tempo podcast. Dustin Smith and Blake Lane with you as always. But Blake, we got a special guest, man. Introduce our guy, brother.
We got Phillip Dukes, the scoop from On3 here to talk some Auburn Tigers football. Dukes, how you doing tonight, brother?
And I'm good, man. Blessed and grateful to be here.
Love that. Dustin, kick it off, man. Let's get into it, brother.
Dukes, last Friday, bro, Auburn gets a commitment from Broderick Scholl. Turn on the tape, and it just pops. Haven't seen an Auburn get an offensive lineman this athletic, this explosive in a long time. 19th ranked overall player, according to y'all's rankings over there at On3. So he's going to be a 5-star soon. Can you just talk about, man, how important that is to get a guy like that in this class when now you look into these recruitments that Auburn's trying to finish off on the offensive side, like a Juju Lewis or a Caleb Cunningham?
It's been one of the things that's eluded Auburn for so long. I think he's the highest rated recruit on the offensive line since Calvin Ashley, if I'm not mistaken. It's something that Auburn hasn't been able to do, and that's to close with the top offensive linemen. They've been close a million times. You can go back to the flirtation they had with Amarius Mims and then Broderick Jones. You just named guy after guy after guy that Auburn was close and never really closed the deal. Well, they finally closed the deal, and they closed the deal with an Auburn guy. I think everything that Broderick Scholl, everything that he represents Auburn. He kind of reminds me of not Braden Jr. What's the guy from a couple years ago? Braden Smith. Kind of remind you go to the Midwest, you get a guy, no frills kind of guy, really strong, really athletic, all about ball. And I think that's the perfect fit for what Auburn wants to do. Now, when you look at, you talk to a Julian Lewis who's on his OV this weekend, and you say, well, we're going to protect you. Well, we've got offensive guys. We got guys along the offensive line. I always thought this had to be a class where you got at least 6, and you get 6 really good developmental pieces. And now you're starting to see the profile that Auburn wants is going to be big and athletic. And it's not just the big guys who can just lean on you, even though they have a few of those guys mixed in the recruitment process. But all of these guys can move with their feet. You look at Tavares Dice, who was a former basketball player, won a state championship in Georgia and actually played. You look at a guy like Carday Smith, raw athletic prospect, really good feet, super strong. Broderick Scholl, what pops on the tape, he's like a dancing bear. Like his feet are always going. And when he gets his hands on you, it's like a bear has got you. So I think it's really important. I think Auburn's doing a great job. So kudos to Hugh Freeze, one, and also Jake Thornton.
Yeah, for sure. And Jake's definitely putting in the work. One guy you didn't mention that was talking about that offensive line class is my guy, Ty Buster. I think right now, of guys currently committed, Dukes, I think he's the biggest sleeper in the class. So if you just speak on Ty's game, and then is there a guy that you're looking at that you think is maybe pretty underrated that's currently on Auburn's commitment list?
I like Ty Buster a lot when you think about what he's able to do in the interior. The way that he's performed when you look at the tape, he's played a multitude of positions on the offensive line already in high school. But secondly, what he's able to do is he really finishes blocks. And that's what really just opens my eyes when I watch film on the guy. The way he's able to drive a guy into the dirt when he gets you is done. And at his age, when you get guys who are really more athletically superior, a lot of times they just want to push and be done. And he will really lock in and make sure that he's walking this guy to the locker room. And that's what I really liked about Ty Buster. He's a really lunch pail type guy. He does have some athleticism, 6'3", 280, 288, 290. I think he could have – and he's the type of guy that I think that plays so well with leverage that if he had to play defensive line in a pinch, he could. So I think he's one of those guys who has that versatility. You can play him at guard, you can play him at tackle in a pinch. So yeah, I think that's a really good guy as far as being an underrated guy. And I know I just spoke about him, but the guy that I was going to talk about was Tavares Dice at Langston Hughes. For me, just having so much familiarity with him and knowing how new he is to the game and how much he's developed over the last year. When I talk to coaches and staffs about Tavares Dice, the staffs that are high on him are really high on him. And it's just what he gives you as far as his build. he has one of those frames that he really reminds me of Laramie Tunsil, how lean he is at that size, has a little bit of a gut, but it's that strong. It looks like if you punch him in the stomach, break your hand, one of those type guys. So when you talk about having those, you put a guy that athletic on one side, on the other side of a Broderick Shaw, and even when I talk to Dice or I talk to a lot of people in Atlanta, I'm saying, well, why is he only ranked a 4-star? It's just because he doesn't have the same body of work of some of these other guys. I think this is the year that he makes a serious jump in the rankings. And when I saw him at the UA camp, I talked to Charles Power. I think he's the director of rankings at On3. He said, dude, that's my first time seeing him, man. I had no idea he had hips like that. And that's so important when you talk about having an offensive lineman, being able to get that lower bend, to get that sink, especially when you talk about being a 6'5" guy, being able to play with leverage. So if I had to take an underrated prospect, even though he is a 4-star, I do think Tavares Dice is still one of those sleepers that he could end up being one of the better offensive tackles on that roster.
Yeah, love that. Before we move off that offensive line, you think Scholl is going to be the quickest to jump into that starting rotation? Is he the most SEC ready?
Yeah. In my opinion, he is. He's already got the size, he's got the build, he's got the mentality, he's got the work ethic, he's got the IQ. I just think he has so many things going in his favor that if I had to pick somebody, I think the cerebral component is something that people forget about on the offensive line. But that's one of the reasons that Connor Lew was able to play at such a young age last year. So I think he has it mentally from what I'm hearing. So yeah, I think Shaw will probably be your best bet to get early playing time.
Yeah, love that, dude. Love that, man. You mentioned Julian Lewis coming in, number 1 ranked quarterback coming in this weekend, but you got to get guys to throw to him. And Caleb Cunningham comes on. Was it 2 weekends ago? I think he visited. He comes out afterwards and says Auburn is the leader. Dukes, I think he's the best wide receiver in the country. Do you agree with that? And what does Auburn got to do to kind of get him in the class? How do we finish this thing off?
I think so. One, Caleb Cunningham, if he's not the best, I think he's definitely the most physically imposing. When you talk about having that wingspan, that catch radius, he's more along the lines. When you look at the guys ranked above him, you only got like maybe 2 or 3 guys, depending on who you ask. But you look at a Khalid Lockett, who's more in that 6'1.5" range. You look at a guy like Decorian Moore. Both of these guys are more so of the Garrett Wilson, route running, really good in and out of those breaks type of guys. Caleb Cunningham is one of those guys. You say, hey, bro, look, throw me the ball. I'm going to get it. It doesn't matter. And I think when you look at how Auburn is going to use Cam Coleman, using a Perry Thompson, he gives you that continuation of having that physically imposing threat. And I think the flip side of that is Hugh Freeze likes to run the ball on the perimeter at times, and being able to seal the perimeter by having a 6'3", 6'4" guy, when he gets his hands on a 5'11" corner, it's almost like a pulling guard. And when you look at the DK Metcalfs of the world, the AJ Browns, those physically imposing receivers, I think Caleb Cunningham really fits what Auburn wants to do on the perimeter. But yeah, overall, I think he's probably the most physically imposing receiver in the country. As far as what Auburn needs to do to close it, I think you got to let him know who's going to be throwing the ball. So I think by getting a guy I think it's one of those chicken before the egg type deals. Do you get Julian Lewis because you got Caleb Cunningham, or do you get Caleb Cunningham because you get Julian Lewis? Well, I think you already got options at receiver for Julian Lewis. You got Perry Thompson, you got Cam Coleman. You look at the 2 guys that you could put on a slot in last year's class, Malcolm Simmons and Bryce Kane. Add them in with a guy like Robert Lewis. So next year, by the time that Julian Lewis gets to school, if he does start as a true freshman, he's got options. Caleb Cunningham may not have as many options in that quarterback room as Julian Lewis. So I think by landing a guy like Julian Lewis, or maybe landing a KJ Lacey, depending on which way they want to go, I think it helps you by letting Caleb Cunningham know who's going to throw on the ball.
Okay. Dukes, I got to ask you real quick about Derek Smith, man. Like we saw him in the Auburn uniform on the visit. Where does Auburn sit with him? Is there a possible flip there?
Yeah, I think there is. I think Auburn really came out strong. I think by the time Derek Smith really saw what was going on in Alabama, saw the new energy, a lot of the recruits were just like, oh man, I've never seen Alabama like this. So they wanted to jump on. But now as things started, you kind of had that post-visit high, but as things start to wear along and you start to see the consistency in which Auburn is recruiting, you kind of open your eyes a little bit and you say, man, I may want to be a part of that. Derek Smith is probably the best athlete overall in the class in Alabama. Like, I don't know anybody who's maybe more athletic than him. He can play anything on the field. If you go watch the film, you see him every time he's around the ball, something happens. And that's how I judge a guy. Like, even on defense, when he makes a tackle, does something happen? Does the ball come out? Do you see a guy literally go fly back? And no matter what position he's playing, he's jumping over guys, he's running away from people, and he's making plays. So I think he's one of those guys where those Swiss Army knives that he really embodies what the term athlete means in recruiting. I think he's one of those, he's the type of player that Auburn needs, and I do think they have a really good shot. And don't let Auburn start winning games, bro. I'm telling you. Don't let Auburn get out here and get a Georgia victory. Don't let them get out here and get the 5-1, 6-1, where you got the momentum. You see Jordan Hare rocking. You know, you got Nike on the way. I mean, Auburn is really a powder keg. And the excitement level of what they'll be able to do this year with Jarquez Hunter and Damari Alston, now when you have an outside receiving threats like you do now, where Peyton Thorne's game can be elevated because all he's got to do is get it in a zip code. It ain't got to be perfect. You get it around them two guys. They say Perry Thompson is just as good as Cam Coleman. I've already heard that. They were like, bro, when Cam Coleman got to school, I talked to the DBs that were there. They said, real deal. Perry Thompson, just from workouts and what they're seeing, real deal. So I'm telling you, I think Auburn has a really special year on tap, and I think that's those are the type of things that help you get a Derek Smith, because you see Auburn in a different light. These guys, since they've been highly recruited, haven't seen Auburn be a favorite. They haven't seen Auburn win more than 9 games. They haven't seen that since they have been recruited. The whole time Derek Smith has been recruited, Auburn has been he got to school probably in COVID. They've been a 6-win team the whole time.
Yep.
So now when you get to see Auburn in a different light, Auburn winning is something these recruits haven't seen. So I think it's really important. I think that's one of the things that can help Auburn really land a guy like Derek Smith.
Dustin, I wanted to fit this one in here real quick. We're talking about Juju Lewis and KJ Lacey. I know the heat on both of those to Auburn is real. And Dukes, is there any way that Auburn misses on both of these guys and they go to the portal, or they just pass up on a quarterback in this recruiting class?
Yeah, they can miss both of them. They can, like, they both committed. And I think a lot of times, like, we go off of Reddit boards and message boards, and it's like, oh, there's no way you know. Yeah, it's a way. One, they're human. Two, they're 17 to 18 years old. They can flirt all day. How many times have we been to the altar as people who follow Auburn and want Auburn to do well when it comes to recruiting, and you get left at that and you end up being a bridesmaid? So now I just think that there's absolutely an opportunity for them to stay at their respective schools. Juju being at USC commit, KJ Lacey being, I thought what was really telling was Keelan Russell committing to Alabama. I thought he was almost going to be a done deal to Texas, and then KJ Lacey was going to be like just a guy shoo-in to go to Auburn. Well, that didn't happen. And Texas still is going to need a quarterback. So when you look at some of the quarterbacks available, there's a guy in Texas right now named Ty Hawkins that I think that Auburn has already been kind of looking at a little bit. He's a little bit undersized, maybe about 5'11", but he can really throw it. He's starting to pick up. Oregon just jumped on him. I think he's a TCU commit. If he's not, we'll double check that. But there are some other quarterbacks that Auburn kind of has. They're being watching and saying, okay, if this doesn't shake right, then yeah, we do have other options in the class. So yeah, but it's absolutely a possibility that neither one of those guys ends up in orange and blue.
Love that.
Well, Deuce, you talked about a couple Saraland players right there. So I'm gonna ask you this: true or false? Auburn signs a player from Saraland High School in this class.
True.
Love it.
True. Antonio Coleman.
I don't know which one. They'll get one. They got some more kids down there too, so I wouldn't be surprised, dog. Like, and every year there's a guy that you're not expecting at Saraland that just pops out of the blue. It's like, oh, what? Like, think about it. When it was the Ryan Williams show, we weren't thinking about Antonio Coleman 2 years ago. So now, as people come in, and then you'll see other guys transfer in that I can't really speak on. So yeah, I think Auburn has a pretty good shot at landing the guy to Saraland this year.
Yeah, for sure. We got to get in there, man. Last one I got, Blake. Look, we know that Zach Edwards did his thing back there in the secondary for a long time for Auburn. Whenever things were not going well for Auburn on the recruiting trail, Zach was holding it down, doing his part, and the DB room is stacked because of it. Just kind of speak to the job, though, that Crime Dog or Charles Kelly are doing. Duke's taking over that room in the class that they're bringing in.
Yeah, I think they're more the they don't. What I like about Coach Kelly and Coach Crime Dog is they don't recruit according to rankings. They recruit according to their board and what they see. So you look at a guy like Bryce Diaz. I hope I'm saying that right. Somebody who a verified track time type guy. I think he just ran the 10.6 state record holder in Tennessee. He's the type of guy who plays the brand of football that you want at Auburn. When you look at guys who can be successful in the cover 3 scheme, that are long enough, that are fast enough, I just think that he's a perfect fit. And you don't sign a guy like that if you're just going based on recruiting rankings. So I think that's something that they do really well. You look at some of the success that Coach Kelly's had. We know about Derwin James and we know about Jalen Ramsey, but what about Brian Branch, who would have walked to Auburn, right? Was looking at he took, like, Charles Kelly took Brian Branch from Georgia Tech, like that was where he was going to school, and really wanted to go to Auburn. Charles Kelly said, I don't damn the rankings. He's a ball player and I can use him in multiple ways. And I think that mentality is what's going to continue to have guys who may not just be these 5-star guys. Now, are they recruiting Na'eem Offord? Absolutely. Are they going to continue to recruit New Boy Fagans? For sure. But it's not the end of the world, because I think these guys both have track records of finding guys who fit what they want to do. And having 2 of these OGs on the staff together, I think only bodes well for what Auburn will do in the secondary in the future.
Dukes, I was going to ask you about Offord. I know there's some steam with Alabama. He's visited a couple times here lately. Some people on Twitter were kind of saying that there could be a possible flip to Alabama, but Hugh Freeze said he's one of those kids that he just can't let get away. Where does Auburn sit with him? And is it going to come down to Alabama and Auburn, especially with him being right there in Birmingham and committed to Ohio State?
I talked to people on both staffs, and neither one of them feel like they both think it's going to come down to Alabama, Auburn. I think a sleeper team in this whole thing is Georgia. I think that when you look at the success that Georgia's had at recruiting cornerbacks from Alabama, you think about like a guy like Kamari Lassiter, who Auburn really should have been an Auburn guy, but Georgia snuck in and got him. I think that, like, Georgia is a threat, but I also do think that Auburn has a really good relationship with Auburn's coaches, up and down the roster of coaches. And when I talked to him, he was like, man, I got, like, every time I go to Auburn, I done been a million times. I got my own special place. I like to go sit by myself when I'm at Auburn, and I just get to go relax, so it feels like home because I got my own little thing I do. I got my own routine, and you look at his pops had a lot. His pops used to be, when I was in school. I met his dad 20 years ago when I was in school. His dad didn't go to Auburn, but I think he was working, or he went to Southern Union, one of those schools. He was in the area, super familiar with Auburn. He's got, like, uncles and godbrothers, like, in the Phoenix City area who are crazy about Auburn. So I don't think it's one of those things where it's like, oh, he went to Alabama and now he's gone. No, I think what you do have to understand what area he's in. He's really close to Alabama as far as driving wise. They had success with Kool-Aid, who when it comes to popularity, he did have, they are similar when it comes to popularity in that area when you talk about football. And then I think Auburn didn't do themselves any favors when his older brother, Mekhi Hughes, who's great running back at Tulane, had like 1,400 yards last year, would have walked to Auburn. So it ended up at Tulane. So that didn't do us any favors or do Auburn any favors. But when I think about him just looking at this recruitment, yeah, I think Auburn has a real shot at it. And I also think that if Georgia and Alabama definitely have shots, but I just don't ever count out OG Tim Walton at Ohio State, man. He's really good at what he does. Offord has built a great relationship with D. Sanchez, the other, who, depending on who you look at, they're 1 and 2 in the rankings, and they like the idea of being, the top 1 and top 2 in the country and going to compete against each other to find out who's number 1. But I think that's just good. It speaks to his competition level. I just think it all boils down to it could really boil down to who wins the Iron Bowl. Let Auburn go down there and spank them in Tuscaloosa this year and see what happens. Like, so, I just I just think for those Iron Bowl battles, it's gonna be one of those things where just look at what Kool-Aid McKinstry said. He was getting ready to come. He was getting ready to come to Auburn. He was like, man, they look sorry. Basically, yep. I want to win. You put a winner out there, it changes everything for Auburn. So, yeah, I just think this season is going to be important. Man, let them get out here and get them a 9-piece. Don't let them get 10. It's going to be smoke in the city.
Well, last one I got for you, Dukes, is you brought up a running back there in the middle of that. Where is Auburn right now in the running back room on the recruiting trail? And Alvin Henderson, no shot he ends up at Penn State, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's Auburn's to lose, to be honest. Even though he's at Penn State, I think that if Auburn just continues to stay the course, shows what they do with a 2-back system, and continues to recruit at the rate that they've been recruiting them, just let them know we're not going to let you go to Penn State. Like, we'd be crazy to let you get there. And recruiting him like he's already a part of Auburn's family. I think if they continue to do that, they should get Alvin Henderson in the end. And I think another guy is Usman Croman. What I think where from Lee County, he's a monster of a running back. I really think he's underrated, to be honest. Like, I think Usman Croman is a really good back. You put him up against, you put him behind one of those a massive offensive line and watch what he does with having a passing attack that can take that 8th man out of the box. Where now I got a basic 7 front is good on good. Your guys against mine. He's one of those guys where if a linebacker has to tackle him one-on-one, they're not going to be able to do it, and it's not going to be a juke move. He's going to run through him. So I just think with Auburn's ability to recruit and having a guy, Alvin Henderson, to be good, Alvin and Usman, I think, are two guys that can see each other playing for Auburn, and I think they have a really good shot to prove to them that they can distribute the ball evenly in the backfield this year when you got two guys in Jarquez Hunter and Damari Austin. If they can showcase that 2-back system where, hey, let's say they both leave this year, or let's say only one goes and Damari Austin comes back, who's the second guy? So they have a really good opportunity to recruit both of them. And I right now, if I had to pick, I think that if I had to make a prediction right now, I think that both of those guys probably end up in the class.
Any love for Jeremiah Cobb?
For sure, just a different kind of back.
There you go.
Yeah, just a different kind of back. I think he's more of the right now. He's more of a third down. And now as he develops, he'll grow into more of a 3-down guy. Yeah. But right now, I think as far as his acceleration, his speed, he's really one of those guys who can become a weapon on 2nd and 3rd down when you can get into some of those multiple sets.
Love that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, hey, dude, we appreciate you joining the show, man. You always been nice to us. We appreciate you helping us out, brother. Tell the people if they're living under a rock, dude, and they don't know where you're at, how can they find you, brother?
Man, find me on Twitter and Instagram at Dukes D Scoop. Look on the On3 recruits page. I got a lot of good interviews up. I got some more content coming where I'll be interviewing coaches and getting into more breakdowns. So, yeah, I'm just excited about the opportunity. And, shoot, man, you want to talk football, hit me on Twitter. I do respond.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Y'all go check out Dukes, man. He's killing the game. I think he's the best in the game right now. On3, man. Y'all are on fire over there, Dukes. Please hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you have not. We are knocking on the door, 2,000 subs, man. Y'all help us out. We're almost there. We'll have Dukes back on here in a little bit to talk about some more recruiting before the season. Love all y'all, man. War Damn Eagle. We'll catch y'all on the next one. We're out of here.
War Damn.